Hi guys, welcome back to TOEFL with Juva. Many students make mistakes in the TOEFL that lower their scores, but you can avoid these mistakes so easily. In this lesson, I will talk about 11 common mistakes that you must absolutely avoid in the TOEFL. Let's get started. Mistake number 1 is a big one: lacking structure. Your answer in TOEFL writing and speaking must have a logical organization and flow for a high score. You can't just ramble on about whatever you're thinking of. Why? Because structure is part of a good answer. In TOEFL writing, a good essay is well structured and addresses all points in a logical way. When you give an answer in TOEFL speaking, a good structure ensures that you talk about everything you have to include and helps you to complete your answer in the short time given. The best way to have a great structure is to use templates. Templates are fantastic because they give you sentence starters with linking words that show how each idea relates to the argument. Further, you don't have to think about how to start your sentences. You can simply start writing and speaking. So templates save you time, give you a great structure, and ensure that you use a lot of vocabulary. This will boost your score. You can find templates in my TOEFL materials. Just click on the link in the description. Let's check out mistake number 2, misreading instructions. If you have prepared well, you will be familiar with the instructions for each section. As a result, this should not be a problem. However, many people still get lower scores because they don't do exactly what the question asks. For example, if the prompt of an integrated task says, "Use examples from the reading," then you can't focus only on information from the listening section. If a writing prompt says, "Write at least 100 words," then you need to write over 100 words if you want full points. In TOEFL reading, some questions ask for facts which are not in the passage. You must notice the not or you will get the question wrong. This may seem obvious, but many students lose points because they don't read the prompt correctly. Solve this problem by learning the types of questions and what to expect. Mistake number 3 is using memorized examples. Some students try to memorize complete answers on various topics. For example, they might remember a little speech about plants and use it anytime there is a question about plants. Don't do this, you will get a low score. First, the examiner can usually tell if you are saying or writing something you have memorized or if you are thinking about the ideas as you go. More importantly, you never know what topics you will get on the TOEFL, and so it's impossible to memorize a sample answer for every one of them. That's wasting time. Your memorized examples will not match the question exactly, and your score will drop. Don't forget, you must use information from the reading and listening sections of the integrated questions to get a high score. If you use memorized examples, you won't do that, and this will lower your score. We will move on to mistake number 4, writing or saying too much. Many students start talking or writing about details of a topic, and the main idea becomes lost. This leads to 2 main problems. The first is that the examiner doesn't see the point you are talking about. You may have great grammar and vocabulary, but if you get too involved in long explanations, you may not complete the task successfully because you run out of time. This is particularly a problem in the speaking section. You only have a short time to talk. If you give 3 or 4 sentences about the first point in your argument, you won't have time for a second point. The second problem is that you have more chances to make errors. It's better to speak and write clearly than to use as many words as possible. Mistake number 5 is leaving questions blank. If you don't know an answer or if you run out of time, don't leave the questions blank. If you can eliminate some answers that are definitely wrong, great! Then you can choose between fewer answer choices. You will not be penalized for a wrong answer, and you may get lucky. It's definitely worth filling in every answer to help boost your score. Let's have a look at mistake number 6, using overly complex language. This point may surprise you. Don't use language that is too difficult. Some students try to show off with really complicated sentence structures and vocabulary. Don't! It doesn't sound natural and you can easily make mistakes. Of course, practice using complex language when getting ready for the test. But when you take the actual TOEFL, use language you really know well. It doesn't matter if it's a bit simple, as long as you convey your ideas in an organized, clear manner. Yes, you heard me right. You will get lower points for complex grammar done wrong than simple grammar done correctly. This advice also applies to vocabulary. Be hesitant to use words, especially idioms and phrasal verbs that you don't know well. Let's check out mistake number 7, not taking notes. Here's another point that is often a problem for students. You may think that taking notes is distracting, so you don't write anything down. That's a problem. There is a lot of information given during the listening passages, and you only get to hear them once. If you are nervous, it's even easier to forget what you heard. Don't try to write down every word in sentence form. Just jot down the main ideas so you don't forget the important points. Taking notes makes it really easy to use a template and organize a great response. Practice taking notes before the actual test, so it's not hard to write and listen at the same time. Mistake number 8 is skipping practice. It's easy to procrastinate, especially if you have a long time to prepare. However, the TOEFL is a long test, so it takes time to really get ready for it. It may be more fun to spend the evening with friends or watch the television, but try to resist that temptation. Create a schedule of what you want to do every day and stick to the plan. Be sure to include several practice tests so you are completely familiar with the test structure. Don't make the schedule too difficult. If each day has a reasonable amount, it's easier to stay on target and get ready for all the tasks. If you are comfortable with English, you should still plan on reviewing the test format. You don't want to lose points because you run into a question type you didn't expect. If you are planning to take the test, definitely use a study plan and then follow it. This is the best way to maximize your score. If you need a study plan and want to know how to approach your TOEFL preparation, check out my TOEFL materials. They include full sample answers, strategies, and much more to boost your score. The link is in the description. Let's go on with mistake number 9, trying to be too creative. A final warning about the writing and speaking section. Don't worry about the viewpoint you choose. A lot of students try to be creative and come up with really original ideas to discuss. The problem is that if you take too much time to prepare the idea, you won't have time to think of good examples and supporting information. In other words, you won't be ready for the task itself. You are not scored on your viewpoint. You can argue for or against the same claim, and it's okay. You're only scored on how well you present and support your ideas. Therefore, I suggest picking your viewpoint quickly and using the remaining preparation time to organize your response rather than trying to be creative about the structure and topics. Mistake number 10 is focusing on details. TOEFL reading and listening include long passages and can be on academic topics you haven't heard of. It's easy to freeze when you hear new vocabulary. All the information you need to understand rare words is given in the passages or lectures though. The words are defined in other sentences or by using examples. The passages and lectures are also organized very well with linking words, showing when one point changes to the next. The linking words signal the relationship of ideas to each other. If you focus on minor details and try to write down them all in a listening section, you won't be able to follow the main idea of the passage. Try to follow the main idea, not small points. For TOEFL reading, if you focus too much on reading the passage really carefully at the start, you won't have time to answer the questions. Just scan the passage and look for specific information once you start answering the questions. Finally, mistake number 11 is arriving unprepared. I want to remind you that a TOEFL is a long test. Lots of students spend the night before studying as hard as possible. Then they are tired during the actual test. Relax and sleep well. Don't forget to eat a good meal so you aren't hungry during the test either. Also, plan ahead about how you will get to the testing center so that you won't arrive late. If you are taking the home edition, then make sure you start setting up the equipment early. Don't forget to have your ID and other materials with you. You definitely don't want extra stress from technical issues you could have had ready before the actual test. These may sound very basic, but they are some of the most common problems students have when taking the TOEFL test. That's it! That's 11 common mistakes on the TOEFL test that you must absolutely avoid. I hope this video was helpful to you guys. If you have any questions or a video wish, comment below and I would love to see you here next time. Bye bye!